Alright, I went out on June 2nd. I first stopped at an estate sale. The prices were pretty high, but I found some nice heavy linens. I think they're bed sheets. I can use these for drop cloths, table covers, even backdrops. They're huge sheets, like 90 by 90. And they're a real heavy linen fabric, cotton. So I think they'll make a great backdrops, drop cloths, covers, even furniture covers. Next, took a short trip out to a place called Lake Winola. And this house in the foreground, there was an estate sale. It's right on the lake. It's a beautiful small lake. At that next estate sale at Lake Winola, there was a lot of stuff, really nice stuff, actually pretty reasonably priced. This was an estate sale company that usually is pretty reasonable, so I got a couple things there. First thing is this sort of a mid-century walnut tray. It's got like little coins inset into the tray. So it was only $2. Towel or napkin or something. It was just a single one like that. It's got a couple stains, so I'm going to try to soak it in some OxyClean and get that out. Next is a little table runner, an embroidered table runner. Again, these were only $1 each. So I grabbed those as soon as I walked in the door. So again, I'll soak these in OxyClean. There was a viewer that suggested OxyClean, and I tried that on a couple things and it worked great. And this really nice tablecloth. It's got these chickens on it. 60 by 80 inches. Once again, it's got a couple little stains, but it's in really good shape. 100% cotton, made in India. It just says tag. So I don't know if this is terribly old. Might be 80s at the most. It could even be newer than that. I'm not sure. So this might go on eBay. I don't know if this will quite qualify for Etsy. Alright, next I did 2 community sales, both a bust. This was a large community sale, 30 homes. Usually just a bunch of household stuff, so I didn't get anything here. So that was it for this weekend. Not a whole lot, didn't pick up a whole lot. And the bin that all these linens were in, got a free bin out of the deal. And also went to Goodwill this past week. And they had a bunch of plastic bins for sale, and I picked up 4 plastic bins. These clear plastic bins for 50 cents a piece. Also with Goodwill, 2 more Bibles. And while we're here at the backdrop table, started experimenting with a new backdrop setup. These are some shelf boards that I picked out of the trash about 3 or 4 years ago. I hadn't found a use for them yet, and finally came up with a use for them. I can set them up like this. So I have a nice dark backdrop, and it looked great with a few items I did so far. And I can also do this. Put a piece of beadboard behind that, and it almost looks like a kitchen countertop. And I photographed the Sears canisters in front of that, and it looked absolutely awesome. And if you remember in the previous video, I found these hats. I've got a couple hats listed so far, and I sold a Baltimore Orioles hat. And I've been researching these hats. and came to find this Caterpillar hat is quite valuable. There's some other ones just like this on eBay that are listed for about $65. Alright, after a little more looking, I saw some other hats just like this. They're actually listed for $250, and even some other hats that aren't Caterpillar that were around the $250 range. This trucker style hat. So I ended up listing this at around $249 with the best offer. The Montreal Expos hat. I'm going to hang on to this for a little bit. I've since cleaned it. Used some OxyClean on it, and it looks almost brand new. The inside is a little bit yellowed, but that's fine. The top came out great. There's almost no spotting visible anymore. And had trouble finding comparables on this, but I finally found one. There was one just recently listed on eBay. It's the exact same hat, has colors in a different combination. It's the same red, white, and blue, but the colors are in a different combination. Exact same style, same age, and that one is listed for $125. So I'm going to sit and watch that one. And there was one on Etsy that sold a long time ago. Those were the only two that I could find. And unfortunately on Etsy you can't find prices. So I'm going to sit on this for a little bit, watch that other one, and then maybe in another week or two I'll list this one. And it'll probably be in the 125 range or so. If you recall from the Glenburn Township cleanup, I found this nice suitcase and discovered it's an American Tourister suitcase. American Tourister. And it's dated 1999. It's in almost perfect condition. And at the end of last week I cleaned it, washed it inside and out, scrubbed it down inside and out, and it's been hanging here all weekend drying. There's only a couple little tears in the outside, and you can see the label American Tourister. And I've looked these up, and unfortunately they're not very valuable, maybe $50 at most. So I'm going to pull this down and put it back together and photograph and list this. Came out great. Fabric cleaned up beautifully. And as far as I can tell, everything is complete. And there's no tears, just maybe a couple little stains here and there. Alright, I'm mixing up some OxyClean. And last week I was driving by a house and they had a bunch of stuff sitting out on the curb. So I stopped in that house and found a bunch of plastic bins. So I grabbed all those plastic bins, and this was one of the bins. So it makes a great wash tub. So I'm going to take these linens and I'm just going to soak them in here for a few hours. And also, when I was dropping off my recyclables at the recycling center, this drying rack was sitting in the recycling bin. So I grabbed that. I've needed something like this a couple of times, so that was kind of a weird find. Friday, June 8th, I went to one garage sale, one yard sale, and then a barn sale. The first garage sale was just way overpriced. And then went to a yard sale. It was just a couple miles away. I didn't think there was going to be, just had a moving sale. Didn't really know if there was going to be anything. And I was surprised. I was shocked at the prices. She was selling stuff dirt cheap just to get rid of stuff. She's moving or something. And I got some really good stuff there. Then went back to the barn sale and got some vintage hats. So I'll show you that stuff. Okay, at the second yard sale, whole box of crafting supplies for $1. I just took a brief look. I just grabbed the box. We'll sort through it later and figure out what to do with it. So that was only $1. This vintage Hasco Mystic board. Made by Haskelite Manufacturing Corporation. $2. And some vintage drawing paper. And the whole stack was 75 cents for the whole stack. So I just grabbed it. I'll sort through and decide what to do with that. That was canning jar for 50 cents with the lid. A whole box of fabric scraps. One with Snoopy on it. This I'll put on Etsy. People are looking for quilting squares and fabric. This will make great quilting supplies. $2 for the whole box. Didn't even argue. And 4 vintage costume hats. There's 2 here that I can tell are really old. I'm going to have to research them a little bit more. This one has a union-made label on it. Some more crafting supplies. Some like pastels, oil pastels. A color wheel. I might even use that. I need one of those. And another Bible. I think it says 1999. It's in very good condition. A leather leather cover, bonded leather. And a Thomas the Train VHS. And a vintage suitcase for only $1. So that second yard sale where I got all this stuff was $10.25 for all of that stuff. I didn't even argue on prices. And stopped at a barn sale. This lady has a barn sale every year. And got a bunch of vintage hats. John Wanamaker hat. These are all $1. 2 wool fedoras. This one is a Stetson. Some vintage caps. This one says Calvert on the front. I think that might be a custom made hat. A vintage NRA hat. Got a US made in USA label. And a vintage Florida Marlins hat. Alright, so that was a pretty good haul for one morning. The next day, Saturday, June 9th, did a few yard sales this morning. One estate sale. Didn't end up getting a whole lot. Just a couple more hats. And one major score. A couple more hats. This is a local team. Scranton Wilkes-Barre Yankees. They're now called the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders. So this is several years old. Another NRA hat for some reason. And 2 vintage wool hunting caps. I think these will wash up good. I can make these as a lot. Another Bible. One major score. I'll show you that right now. A whole bin of vintage eyeglasses. I've been on the lookout for these. I've heard from other sellers that they're always on the lookout for these, and I've seen other sellers sell them for quite a bit. So I've been on the lookout for these. I haven't seen them yet, and this is the first time I've seen some vintage eyeglasses. Now some of them look like they're broken, and maybe some of them may not be salvageable. There's a Liz Claiborne, but there are several in the cases. Looks like they're salvageable. Looks like they should be in good shape if they're in these cases. There's a few broken frames down inside here, but all of them look to be in pretty good shape. From what I've seen from other sellers, they've been selling these for about $35 a pair. So the whole lot was $5. So I'll clean these up, sort through them, and decide what price to put on these. Alright, here I got all the glasses out. I think there's some really good ones here. And a lot of these are in the cases. Jessica McClintock, Liz Claiborne. The lenses are very dirty, so they'll need a good washing. I think what people do with these is buy them for their frames and put their own prescriptions in them. And over time I'll kind of sort through these, figure out what they are, figure out what they're worth, and figure out what to price them at. Alright, we'll take a quick look at the OFFERUP. So far no action on this. I've been listing some items that didn't sell on eBay, and then adding some few items that may not quite be good enough for eBay or Etsy. These were in some stuff I picked up off the side of the road. These little stuffed animals. They're in perfect condition. Here's this vintage American Tourister garment bag. It's $19.99. Cleaned up beautifully, except for just a few little flaws. It's in perfect condition. And these were in that bin with those linens. In the bottom of that bin it had those linens, these graduation decorations. So I put those on here, see if I can sell those. Here's a retractable rolling duffel bag, new with tag, that I found at a yard sale. So I put that on for $20. The original retail price was $39.99. These VHS tapes I moved over from eBay. I just can't sell VHS tapes for some reason. I had these down to $6.99 on eBay and was getting no views or anything. And that one Bible I picked up at Goodwill. So I'm going to keep adding stuff to this. Basically just small items. They have a 20-pound weight limit, so it's small items only for OFFERUP. So I'll keep doing this for a while and see if we get any sales. So far only one offer on this duffel bag. He offered $10, so I countered back at $12 and hadn't heard back. So I'll continue with this and see how this works out. Alright, let's take a look at a few sales over the last week, or last few weeks. First off is this Baltimore Orioles hat that was in a previous video a couple of weeks ago. I listed that and it sold pretty quickly. Someone contacted me and offered $29, and I lowered the price to $29, and they bought that immediately. A large lot of 58 zippers. I got this at a yard sale back in April. That was also in a previous video. and they were $14.95 plus shipping. Now we'll go over to eBay. Kind of a funny story with these. I had someone playing games with me on this item. Old rusty carriage bolts from a fence post. They bought them, made an offer and bought them, and never paid. Went through a non-payment claim, and then I relisted them again, and then the same person did the same thing again, bought them, and then I didn't notice the name at first. And as soon as I noticed the same name, I immediately put a block on the person. So then I've since relisted these again after they didn't pay the second time. The retro metal outdoor patio table, I took an offer of $30 on that. And new home sewing machine finally sold, but unfortunately something happened in shipment and got damaged. The person received it and it didn't operate correctly, so I ended up just doing a full refund and filed a claim with the U.S. Postal Service to try to recover. And been trying to sell this furniture. I finally reduced this chest of drawers to $49.99. Put it on auction several times. Finally got one bid. Some sort of ding dong from Texas. Thought I was going to ship it to Texas, so they canceled that. And I don't know what to do with this furniture. It's still I haven't relisted this yet. And these Dart Industry cherubs, I had these listed since last September. I had 2 pair of these, and finally one of the pair sold and went to England. Then about 2 days later, the other pair sold, strangely enough. They went to Massachusetts, and they're $12.95 plus shipping. A Gilchrist ice cream scoop. I've had these forever. They were in a antique booth that I used to have years ago. So I pulled these out. I had 2 of these. I put one of these on eBay and one on Etsy, and this one finally sold. I lowered the price a little bit to $23.99, so it's $23.99 plus shipping. And this vintage Sunbeam Haskelite tray finally sold. I had this cross posted on both eBay and Etsy, and someone finally came along and bought this for $26. I had originally priced it I think $49, and eventually lowered it to $25 on both eBay and Etsy, and someone finally bought that. And the same person bought the vintage Swingline 7-Eleven stapler that I just found a couple of weeks ago. I had $21.99 with free shipping on that. So they both went in the same box. And here are the other cherubs. These went to Massachusetts.